Leaving a band is like a divorce.
It's just like getting divorced. Oh, you know, exactly.
At first you're angry. You get really angry.
By the dawn of the 1990s, Ozzy Osbourne had already accomplished the one feat that seemed utterly impossible. He had somehow, against every conceivable odd, survived the relentless high-octane torment of being Ozzy. He had been brutally fired from the very metal behemoth he helped create, Black Sabbath, only to claw his way from the ashes and forge a monumental solo career built on anthems of madness and mayhem.
But then comes the time when you get fired. Did that hurt?
Well, it was kind of weird because it was like the pot calling the kettle black because we were all so messed up anyway. So and I said, why are you firing me? Because you're pissed? I said, no, the reason why I'm getting fired because I'm the first one to get pissed.
He had been arrested, hospitalized, and mythologized into a walking, mumbling legend. He'd been written off by critics and doctors more times than he could even remember, each time rising from the gutter like a phantom. By all rational measures, his story should have been concluded, a grim, glassy-eyed footnote in the annals of rock history, a permanent cautionary tale of unchecked debauchery. But the universe, it seemed, wasn't done with him yet. Instead of fading away, the Prince of Darkness was quietly gearing up for his 6th studio album, No More Tears, armed with a fiery new guitarist in Zakk Wylde, a surprisingly sober and clear head, and a renewed, ferocious sense of purpose that would prove to the world his greatest trick wasn't biting the head off a bat, but his own breathtaking resurrection.
I'm in there one day, and Sharon knocks the door and she goes, if you clean your act up, I want a manager. When she said that to me, I'm like, you want to manage me? What the fuck are you saying, mate? She's got me together.
But she changed everything for you.
She saved my life.
It was a great time for me, Ozzy would later reflect. The clarity of hindsight cutting through the decades, I had a point to make, and it was a good album. That album was a resurrection, very well made. And that resurrection began in earnest when he and his crew decamped to Los Angeles, a city itself on the brink of a seismic cultural shift. The air in the studio was thick, not just with creativity, but with the palpable tension of change. The spandex and hairspray hangover of glam metal was finally fading, giving the city a headache, while the brooding, flannel-clad shadow of grunge began to stalk the horizon from the Pacific Northwest. But Ozzy, the ultimate rock and roll survivor, possessed a sharp, almost primal instinct for evolution. We knew we had to attack every song as if it was going to be played on the radio, he declared, a battle cry for relevance. They were caught in a narrow window of time, the last gasp of the 80s glam rock spectacle, just before Nirvana's era detonated and rewrote all the rules. In that precarious moment, there was no room for filler, no patience for the mediocre. They had to step up to the plate with the focused intensity of underdogs, forging an album so powerful, so meticulously crafted, that it would not just survive the coming storm, but conquer it.
It was time anyway, it was time for a change. I'd had an idea of doing a solo project all along the line, and it was kind of, we'd outrun our course, you know, for that time, and it was the best thing that had happened, actually.
My separation from Sabbath, I thought it was all over for me. I thought, you know, I was probably end up back in a factory in Birmingham.
He marched into Los Angeles backed by a shit-hot band of hired killers, a rhythm section forged in fire and fury, with the legendary Randy Castillo hammering the drums and the profoundly skilled Bob Daisley holding down the bass, though the role would later pass to a young, hungry Mike Inez by the time the album's iconic videos hit the airwaves. But the true lightning rod, the seismic shift in Ozzy's sound, came in the form of the guitar duties, handed to a hulking Jersey kid with the wild mane of a lost Viking and fingers blessed with the chops of a god, the one and only Zakk Wylde.
Well, what do they play on it? You know, just Ozzy stuff, you know. Like what?
There's only one guy, Zakk. There's only one Zakk. I mean, thank God.
The mix they created proved instantly electric, and the sessions themselves became a glorious pressure cooker, drenched in equal parts pure musical inspiration and unadulterated juvenile chaos. The studio air was thick with the sulfurous stink of prank bombs, a relentless war of practical jokes, and more grotesque bodily function humor than any multi-platinum, critically acclaimed operation should reasonably withstand. There were shenanigans going on the whole time, Zakk later laughed, recalling the beautiful madness to Metal Hammer. Amid the whirlwind of flying insults and less savory projectiles, it seemed nothing short of a divine miracle that any music was recorded at all. Yet from that beautiful disaster emerged some of the most timeless and powerful anthems of Ozzy's career, proving that genius often thrives not in sterile silence, but in glorious cacophonous uproar.
Time, I was like, it's over, I'm back on the dole, you know, get my burgling suit out again.
But somewhere within the mayhem, between the stink bombs and the juvenile laughter, they tapped into something raw, profound, and unexpectedly tender. Cutting through the noise was one persistent idea, a haunting melody that had taken root in Ozzy's mind and refused to leave, the primordial ooze of a track that would become his most poignant power ballad, Mama, I'm Coming Home. I had been walking around with that melody in my head for a couple of years, but never got a chance to finish it until I was working with Zach on the No More Tears album. Ozzy would reveal in the liner notes for his 1997 compilation, The Osman Cometh. It was a ghost of a song, a fragile, recurring tune humming in the background of his tumultuous life, waiting for the right moment and the right collaborator to give it flesh and bone. And in Zach Wilde, with his surprising capacity for both thunderous riffs and soulful acoustics, that ghost finally found its voice, transforming from a vague earworm into an epic, heartfelt confession that would forever stand as a testament to the vulnerability hidden deep within the storm. The birthplace of this timeless ballad was as far from rock star glamour as one could imagine. We were living in this beat-down apartment in North Hollywood, Zach recalled, a setting of stained carpets and shared dreams. It was in this unassuming crucible that Ozzy, paying a visit, witnessed the squalor and erupted with a mix of shock and paternal concern. Sharon's paying you, isn't she? So amidst the chaos, they sat down at a beat-up piano, and the haunting melody that had echoed in Ozzy's head for years finally found its chords. The soul of Mama, I'm Coming Home was born right there, its tenderness later translated to the aching swell of a guitar. Yet for all the musical perfection, the song remained an empty vessel, powerful but wordless. The task of filling it fell to perhaps the most unlikely poet imaginable, Ozzy's longtime mate and fellow Hellraiser, the gravel-voiced Motorhead frontman, Lemmy Kilmister. I'm good at starting lyrics, but I can't finish them, Ozzy admitted. In a move of pure rock and roll alchemy, he handed Lemmy a cassette of the music, a few scattered lyrical lines, and for inspiration a book on World War II, fully expecting the process to take days. But Lemmy, a force of nature who operated on his own relentless schedule, would deliver a masterpiece not in a week, but in a single, blistering flash of genius. Instead, with the nonchalance of a man ordering a pint, Lemmy simply grumbled, "Come back in about 4 hours." It was a timeline that seemed absurd, a mere fraction of what Ozzy had anticipated. But when the Prince of Darkness returned, he was met with a display of pure, unadulterated genius that bordered on the supernatural. Lemmy had not only effortlessly knocked out the lyrics to Mama, I'm Coming Home, but he had written 2 additional sets of lyrics for other songs, transforming Ozzy's melodic skeletons into fully formed poetic giants. And as if that monumental feat wasn't enough, he had also managed to devour the entire World War II book Ozzy had left with him. A stunned Ozzy stammered, "I go, you have written 3 sets of lyrics?" To which Lemmy replied with typical deadpan finality, "Yeah, and that book was crap." The final perfect punchline landed when a bewildered Ozzy asked, "What book?" And Lemmy shot back, "The book you gave me," cementing the moment in rock and roll lore as proof that while Ozzy was a survivor, Lemmy was an entirely different breed of force, a lyrical blitzkrieg in human form, capable of creating timeless beauty and tearing through historical texts in the same afternoon, all without breaking a sweat. Ultimately, the pen of the relentless Lemmy Kilmister, more accustomed to chanting anthems of speed and steel, etched its mark onto several tracks on No More Tears, the defiant I Don't Want to Change the World, the autobiographical Hellraiser, the driving Desire, and most notably the album's stunning centerpiece, Mama, I'm Coming Home. And this song was different. This wasn't the Ozzy of shrieking bats and blasted demons. This was a man stripped bare, singing of love, regret, and the quiet, desperate ache to return to the one anchor in his chaotic existence. The subject of this heartfelt plea was no mystery. The mama wasn't his mother, it was Sharon, his wife, the fierce and formidable centrifugal force holding his entire universe together. As Ozzy himself explained, the phrase was a literal promise, a mantra of survival. It was always something I'd say on the phone to my wife near the end of a tour. And in a stroke of profound artistic kinship, Lemmy, the gruffest of souls, somehow reached into the heart of his friend and translated that raw homesick feeling into poetry. It was the most amazing thing, Ozzy marveled. I couldn't have written it better myself because it was just so perfectly me, you know? He knew what I was trying to say. In that moment, the Motorhead madman didn't just write a hit. He handed Ozzy his own soul, set to music. Indeed, Lemmy's lyrics captured all of it. The heavy guilt of a life spent on the road, the bone-deep exhaustion of a man who had partied with demons and fought his own shadows, and the quiet, desperate yearning for a normalcy that Ozzy rarely acknowledged, let alone allowed himself to feel. Musically, Zakk Wylde's arrangement is pure emotional architecture, a masterclass in dynamics where tender, melodic verses like a man tiptoeing home in the dark build inexorably into a chorus that doesn't just swell, but rips the heart wide open with its raw, pleading power. His guitar solo isn't a flashy, technical spectacle, it's a cry of liquid soul, a wordless confession that says everything the lyrics cannot. By the time the final chorus crashes over the listener, a profound transformation has occurred. Ozzy isn't the Prince of Darkness anymore. He's not a rock god or a public spectacle. He is simply John Osbourne from Birmingham, battered and weary, trying to find his way back through the front door to the one person who makes the chaos worthwhile. When No More Tears dropped in September 1991, it didn't just restore Ozzy's commercial standing, it cemented his emotional legitimacy, proving he was far more than just a caricature of debauchery. The record was his best-sounding and most cohesively powerful album since Diary of a Madman, a stunning synthesis of brute force and unexpected grace. Every time I've gone into the studio, I've always wanted to do a better album than the last, Ozzy reflected, a testament to his relentless drive. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time, against all odds, surrounded by chaos and genius, it worked magnificently. And this time, it absolutely did. Mama, I'm Coming Home didn't just resonate, it soared, becoming Ozzy's only solo single ever to crack the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100, peaking at a triumphant number 28. More importantly, it transcended the charts to become one of his most enduring anthems, the singular heartfelt ballad that even non-metal fans know by heart, a timeless piece of musical confession that forever redefined the man behind the myth. Even Lemmy, the eternal cynic, couldn't help but be proud of the result, though he characteristically framed it with a wry, gritty truth. In his autobiography, White Line Fever, he cracked, "I made more money out of writing those 4 songs for Ozzy than I made out of 15 years of Motorhead." Ludicrous, isn't it? It was the ultimate rock and roll irony that this gritty poet of the underground had penned his most commercially successful work from the depths of a friend's vulnerability. And decades later, when Ozzy finally took the stage in his hometown of Birmingham for Back to the Beginning on July 5, 2025, his final emotionally charged live appearance, it was Mama, I'm Coming Home that formed the night's undeniable emotional core. Once again flanked by his protégés, with Zakk Wylde weaving its delicate tapestry on a 12-string acoustic and Mike Inez steady at his right hand, Ozzy remained seated, his voice weathered and ragged, but filled with a resolute, undeniable soul. As drummer Tommy Clufetus powered the song with its familiar defiant swing, the moment became a perfect full-circle testament to a legacy not just of noise and chaos, but of profound enduring heart. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart," Ozzy told the sea of faces in his hometown, his voice thick with a lifetime of road dust and raw feeling. Here's a song called Mama, I'm Coming Home. And as the first crystalline notes from Zakk Wylde's 12-string rang out, the entire stadium underwent a profound transformation. In an instant, every phone in the vast building was raised to the sky, their screens glowing like a constellation of torches guiding him home. The broadcast cameras swept across a landscape of emotion, faces glistening with tears, strangers hugging and tens of thousands of voices singing every word back to him in a trembling, unified whisper. They weren't just spectators witnessing a moment, they were a collective force carrying their hero through the final emotional mile of his journey. As the song swelled to its heart-wrenching crescendo, it felt as if the ancient, unseen forces of the universe had conspired to converge every individual journey in that arena. Ozzy's, his band's, the audiences, and the millions watching across the globe into one singular, timeless, and sacred moment of shared humanity. When the last resonant chord faded into the night, the crowd stayed suspended in a breathless, shared silence, holding on to the echo of what they had all created together, a sacred quiet that was louder than any applause. And now, more than 30 years later, Mama, I'm Coming Home still feels radically different from anything else in Ozzy's catalog. It was never a shout of rebellion or an anthem of chaos, but a whispered confession, a crack in the armor through which we saw the true man beneath the makeup and the myth. It remains a rare and precious glimpse beyond the blistering stages, the legendary scandals, and the self-created mythology, right into the unguarded heart of John Michael Osbourne, a man who, after surviving everything the world and his own demons could throw at him, after conquering the universe of rock and roll, truly just wanted more than anything else to finally, simply, make it back through the front door. It is the song that proved that his greatest legacy isn't the madness he survived, but the profound humanity he somehow managed to preserve within it.